Okay, it's June the 18th, 2020. George Webb here on the Diplomatic Back Channel on the Potomac. And you probably have seen a lot about this guy here, Raz from the Chaz. This is Raz, the warlord from BLM in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone near Seattle. And you've probably seen the stories about him gun running and being sort of a flashy guy with an Uzi, with his BMW, Jaguars, Tesla, and so forth, supported by UAE. And this is the classic person who a insurgency would use as a figurehead to draw a lot of people to Seattle as recruits for this Antifa insurgency, if you will, almost an Antifa school. Somehow this Raz makes all these films about weapons, brandishing weapons, even does rape videos and so forth, but somehow gets a grant from the mayor of Seattle for $82,000 for his production company. Again, it just seems like an advertising operation in order to recruit people who have a hatred and a revenge motive against cops for whatever reason to come to Seattle to this school. And this is the key of insurgency. When we went to Minneapolis with Keith Ellison 3 years ago, we showed this same thing in bringing these folks from Somalia that had a deep hatred for Americans from the war, and bringing them to Columbus, Ohio with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and also Minneapolis, Minnesota. We actually went to the El Shabaab headquarters, if you remembered, and we predicted that this would be the hotspot. If there was a powder keg moment, it would start there, and I believe we're going to be correct on that. This is more the second stage, which is recruiting people now who have a revenge motive against whites or against white policemen to now come to Seattle to be trained. Again, most of the people in Seattle in this autonomous zone are law-abiding folks that want to make a positive change. Street fair atmosphere breaks down, and what's going to be left is going to be a key enclave around the Capitol Hill area. Just to show you Amazon, for instance, properties across the way from Capitol Hill. You can see here on the west side of Seattle, it's bisected by I-5 north and south. You can see how the Capitol Hill area is the next huge area that could be developed. And the key landmark I want you to look at is this Cal Anderson reflecting pond area and this ball field, which I believe would be a perfect place to put your insurgency group right next to your police department. And the way these insurgencies work, if you listen to Doug Valentine and so forth, is you have a regular group of state-funded police force, and then you have an irregular army and enclaves and sanctuaries for them. And you establish them right next to, cheek by jowl, right next to the police forces. And you can see that here in this picture of the Seattle Chaz area. You've got here at 12th and Pine in the lower right corner the police department. Again, that's abandoned by the police department. The police department actually put up the barriers for Chaz, so help them predefine it, inviting people to come in, like Raz and the Antifa and Black Lives Matter folks, to come in and sort of occupy this. And I believe there's going to be an appeal to the United Nations here for an autonomy. And again, that's what you want to create in every city. Again, it could be a commission to study human rights. That could be the building that comes in. It could be a Liberty or Dignity Village or a Free State, as they're calling it. We don't know yet, but I look at this ball field here specifically in this open area of this Cal Anderson State Park as the key thing that's been the kind of hub right next to the police station. Again, if you're Paul Whelan and you're off in Russia recruiting people like Krylov and Bogacheva, remember they were together in Michigan, and you're bringing them in to do disruption like the DNC did with Krylov and Bogacheva, toxic clouds in Louisiana, sniper shootings of innocent black people and white cops in Atlanta, bioweapons targeted specifically for black people, those types of rumors. If you're going to create and bring in operatives, there has to be an autonomous place for them to stay. There has to be a sanctuary. There has to be a place recognized by the United Nations as a free zone where people can come and go to run covert operations out of. And that's exactly what I think this ball field and this Cal Anderson State Park will be, as well as it'll change the real estate values in this area. And I do believe the straw buyer here will be either the United Nations or group like Black Lives Matter, and that will be donated to these groups, and then the people like Raz, or in name as straw buyers and sellers, can then sell it on Amazon later on. But I see real estate swindle here from a mile away, and I see insurgency here a mile away. Just again, going on the example set by Keith Ellison in Minnesota with those Al-Shabaab towers that I stood in front of 3 years ago. If you don't remember the mayor of Seattle who gave the $82,000 grant to our good friend, long time Teamster and SEIU lawyer, and then was promoted into the Obama Justice Department, has been called and really prepared for this. Here's what I'm talking about now with the Human Rights Appeal. This is the Human Rights Commission met in Geneva yesterday from the UN, and it was addressed by the brother of George Floyd, and he was saying basically we need to look into systemic racism, not racism in Minnesota, systemic racism across the United States, meaning a Human Rights Commission in every city in the United States. I believe also in every state capital there will be a Human Rights Commission. So again, this body can tax exports. It can also tax imports into the United States. It happened in South Africa. Autonomous zones were created in South Africa, called the Free State there. There's been many autonomous zones all over the world, in Kazakhstan and other places. And they do have the authority, if you're a signatory to the United Nations Charter, to impose surcharges on exports and also tariffs on imports. And this could pay for this new real estate cores that are being hollowed out inside our major cities that are perfect revetments and sanctuaries for insurgency groups. This is what I believe the plan is. As if you follow the channel, you know I've said this for almost 4 years now. This was the JTTF plan all along. And again, MABNY resources are going to be the military assets vitally needed in case of insurrection, are going to be the people that are supplied here in these autonomous zones. We'll follow this up more with Alex Farmer Jones and also Jeffrey Prather in our future episodes.